I'm Amanda Wade, President of the West Central Chapter of the AAMA. Thank you for joining us today. Our speaker today is Amy Klemme, Vice President of Human Resources at Riggs Community Health Center, and we are happy she's here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so I appreciate you guys coming today and listening to me talk. And I talked to Jackie. Jackie was the one that had asked me to come to talk to you guys about human resource type of subjects. And she gave me some ideas of what you guys were interested in. So I'm going to go through my presentation, but if you have questions as we go along, or there's other items that you're curious about when it comes to human resources and how that affects your jobs, please just let me know, and we'll go from there. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is our learning objectives for the day. We're going to talk about OSHA and how that might affect you in the workplace for yourself, as well as other coworkers and other individuals in your organization. So we're going to talk about work injuries, violence in the workplace, as well as ergonomics. Then we'll move on to some communication and conflict management type of items, as well as I didn't really put a lot of slides together for our Family Medical Leave Act, but if we have time, we can go into some of those subjects as well. So first of all, with OSHA, do you guys know what OSHA means and what it stands for and when it was established and those types of items? Does anybody know what that's about? Yeah, so OSHA stands for Occupational Safety Health Administration. It was established in 1971. And does anybody have an idea of why OSHA would have been established? Yes, work injuries. So trying to keep individuals safe, obviously in the workplace. Obviously, healthcare workers play a big part in that, but obviously it probably started more with manufacturing and those types of things, obviously, because those were the most injuries and deaths happen, I'm sure, and so then it kind of has grown from there. So when it comes to OSHA, what types of things do you think that you in the healthcare industry, what type of healthcare or what type of injuries do you guys face, or safety hazards do you face? Falls. Mm-hmm.
Needle sticks.
Needle sticks.
Back injuries.
Back injuries, yep. What type of organizations do you other individuals work for? I obviously know what Charlotte and Jackie do, but...
I'm in medical records. I get paper cuts a lot.
I get paper cuts a lot, yes, yes.
Gashes. Look at them
Gashes, yes. The file folder ones are the worst, right?
Yes.
Vanilla folder
Yeah.
files, yes.
I work front and back, so I do everything.
Okay, you do everything. Okay, yep, okay.
I work in the Coumadin clinic, so basically a lot of paperwork and talking to nursing homes.
Okay. So I was just curious if you guys were, anybody was more in a nursing home setting or those types of things. So obviously back injuries office settings. Okay. So those types of things. I'm going to give you a little bit of statistics and things that I found as I was doing my research for the presentation. So this is a little bit dated, but in November of 2011, there's been an increase in occupational injuries among healthcare workers. The incidence among healthcare support workers increased 6% to almost 2.5 times the rate for all private and public sectors. The rate among nursing aides, orderlies, and attendants rose 7%. Another thing that's a big problem in healthcare is musculoskeletal diseases that has increased by 10%. So that's another big one. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some of those items that may help us prevent some of those types of things as well. The other thing, the hazards, you guys talked about some of them are bloodborne pathogens. Obviously, you guys all go through a training, I know, every year for that. Potential chemical and drug exposure. So that doesn't necessarily apply to you guys, but there could be incidents of that amongst your other peers that you have. Waste anesthetic gas exposures, once again, probably don't have that. Respiratory hazards. Could be another situation. Ergonomic hazards, as I said, that we're going to talk about. Laser hazards, so individuals that work more in x-ray and radiology, those types of things. Workplace violence, which we're going to hit on. Hazards associated with laboratories, radioactive material and x-ray hazards, so those types of things. And nursing aides and orderlies and attendants have the highest rate of musculoskeletal disorders for occupations in 2010. So that makes sense, obviously, as I said, if you work in more nursing home setting and those types of things. And obviously, in large healthcare facilities, these are things that you might not think of necessarily, but hospitals and places like that, mechanical maintenance, so those are more of actually mechanical injuries. So Abe and those guys they may face other hazards than we do. Medical equipment maintenance, housekeeping, food service, so in a hospital setting, food service settings, building and grounds maintenance, laundry, administrative staff. So those are all the things that could be potential hazards for maybe some of your peers. And so when OSHA was implemented back in 1970 or 71, the mandate basically says that employers must implement appropriate engineering controls in healthcare settings to minimize occupational hazards, to lessen occupational infection rates of bloodborne pathogens, such as obviously HIV and hepatitis B, as well as other infectious disease materials that can be transferred from body fluids. And provide engineering controls such as needleless systems to withdraw blood and those types of things. So whenever you guys go through your training, and for those of you who are maybe more veterans in the field, you may have noticed through the years how things have changed for needle sticks and those types of things, also in engineering controls that have come into play there. And obviously proper disposal sites, so you guys all have the where you throw the needles into. And also installation of ergonomically correct equipment and accessible hand washing stations. So those are all things definitely that we have in place for sure. So as I said, part of the mandate is that the facility will provide at no cost to the employee required PPE. So let's talk a little bit about personal protective equipment. And so do you guys know what PPE stands for?
Personal protective
I just said it, didn't I? Personal protective equipment. Yes.
Oh my God.
Woo, she got one, yes. So what types of things do you guys have in your facilities that are personal protective equipment types of things? Gloves, number one, yes. Masks.
Here recently, there's been even more just because of all the Ebola and stuff like that. So there's been recommendations and they've gotten a lot more.
Nice pretty hats.
Yeah.
Yes. So even more mandates that come into place as things increase or as situations increase. Also, other facilities that necessarily not you guys, but heavy duty utility gloves, which, for the example that, face protectors, foot protection. Now, in your guys' areas, really the biggest thing is just obviously making sure that you don't have open-toed shoes on and that type of thing. But that's actually even a situation of PPE, of even maybe you're wearing more of surgeons and those types of things, where the booties on their feet and all those kinds of things. But also in other facilities that maybe some of your other peers also, but spills of chemical and biohazard materials to the feet, they need more protection there as well. Respiratory protection, which we talked about, as well as if you're laser procedures, so there needs to be more of a heavy duty situation when it comes to laser procedures as well. Does anybody have any questions about those types of things that you might face in your workplace as far as PPE and other things that you have in your specific work area to protect you from those hazards? Does anybody have anything else to add to those situations? Nope. Okay. So we'll move on to workplace violence. And so when it comes to workplace violence, what do you think, actually, I come from industry, so I actually come from manufacturing type of setting. So when it comes to manufacturing setting, it's a little bit different, but actually not quite. Whenever I go to meetings, like you guys are attending today, there's obviously a group of human resources individuals that get together, and we have presenters come also, and so police officers will come and talk to us about that. What do you think is one of the number one workplace violence situations that actually kind of all industry faces? And there's been a recent case in Monticello that may give you a clue.
I think the Monticello one was jealous. It's like a love triangle type thing going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Domestic violence, actually. They say domestic violence is one of the biggest causes of workplace hazard or injuries because of that, the person who's getting divorced, or maybe they have a love triangle going on, or those types of things. So actually, that's one of the biggest places industry, all company-wide, that can happen. But what are the risk factors for healthcare settings, do you think, when it comes to that?
I think patients being physically violent.
Yes, that's
Or
actually one of the,
staff.
yes, that's definitely one of the biggest things that you guys would run into.
Verbal and physical.
Yes,
Just because they say it is okay.
Yeah, yes, right,
You always have people that are being fired that,
yes.
you know.
Yes, and actually, who's the target most of the time? When managers and human resources people, whatever it comes to. Yeah, so if I'm in a situation where I'm going to be counseling somebody or terminating somebody, I always think of those things of how is that person going to react when it comes to this situation. Take extra precautions just to make sure that I have somebody else there as a witness. Obviously, I have a panic button in my office that I haven't had to use yet, but yes, but hopefully you guys have some of those things in place as well in your own settings for those situations, because it is really something you really do have to think about. Workplace violence statistics that I found also is top 4 causes of death in the workplace injuries in the past 15 years. They talk about the main psychiatric wards. So you're not always dealing with patients that are mentally stable, especially sometimes in our settings. We have, when we at Riggs, when we serve the underserved, those individuals tend to have a lot more mental health issues as well. So it's a very sad situation, but you just always have to kind of be aware of what's going on in you and your surroundings, and what you need to prepare for as you move forward. So 90 instances in Maine Psychiatric Hospital in 2010. So that's a lot. So those are some things that you always want to kind of keep in mind. So workplace violence is defined by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health as violent acts, including physical assaults and threats of assault directed toward persons at work or on duty, which actually includes terrorism, which they experienced in Oklahoma City, obviously, several years ago, but that's an example. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 48% of all non-fatal injuries from occupational assaults and violent acts occurred in healthcare and social services, mostly in hospitals, nursing homes, personal care facilities, residential care facilities. But those are, outpatient settings are affected to a lesser extent, but you must evaluate the potential in your own facility. I help with some of those functions at Riggs Community Health Center. We actually have a person that really looks at the whole facility as a whole to make sure. So Martha May is our person that really evaluates all that as we go along. And we're always kind of looking for those things as we're walking around as well. What kind of factors do you think contribute to potential workplace violence in healthcare and social services? What's some factors that you can think of? And I can give you an example of what's kind of listed if it helps you to. What kind of things frustrate patients?
Not getting their medicines.
Not getting their medicines.
Bills.
Yes.
And then have to wait for so long to see the provider.
Yes. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Having to wait.
Having to wait, yes. So those are definitely things, and it becomes really hard as well because, as we all know, a big common thing right now when it comes to actually, I don't know if any of you have teenagers or children in school, but when it comes to those individuals, when it comes to teenagers, what's the biggest drug use that happens in school these days?
Prescribed
Yes.
out of mom's cabinet.
Yes, mom, grandma, aunt's cabinet. Okay, so we have drug seekers that are coming, obviously, to get those narcotics, and then teenagers, as silly as they are, have pill parties. You put all your pills in a bowl, and then you pull out a handful and pop them in, and see what you feel like. Doesn't that sound like a good time? So narcotics users and those types of things. So we always have to take precautions when it comes to that also. Because if they're on narcotics and they want more and they're not getting more, what's their reaction? Mad, angry, violence, all those kinds of things. The other thing is prevalence of weapons among individuals who may enter the healthcare facility. So on our doors we have no weapons allowed. Okay, we hope that that's true, but you never know, obviously. The availability of cash and drugs. We talked long waits as a cause of frustration. Also, increasing presence of gangs, drug or alcohol abusers, and disturbed individuals seems to be on the rise. We talked about domestic violence issues. Working in isolated areas and remote locations. So I don't know, we're in Lafayette, but there could be individuals that work in a smaller healthcare facility that's more of a rural situation. And so just be cautious if you're in those areas. And then poor lighting in parking areas. So it gets dark at 5:15 right now. So as we're walking out at night, it's dark already. So we just need to be paying attention to our surroundings at all times. So some things that that as administrators or as individuals that lead organizations that you can possibly bring to their attention or just keep your eye on as you're walking through your facility. As we work every day, we're walking into the same place and it becomes wallpaper, right? So you go to the same desk, you do the same things every day. But just to take that kind of eye away from that and just kind of pay attention to what's going on. So some things that healthcare facilities can do is to maintain comfortable, clean waiting areas. Communicating zero tolerance policy. We have a new CEO, and one of our goals is to have individuals, our patient service representatives, communicate back to the patients that we have a zero tolerance, policy for some of the situations. It's not okay to say the things that you're saying, those types of things. So educating them. Dismissing repeatedly unruly patients or workers, employee training, so training employees so that they understand to be paying attention to what's going on around them. Some hospital facilities and actually some even pharmacies and those types of things require staff members to actually be escorted out to their vehicles. So if you're in a setting that's a really dangerous, could be a potential dangerous situation, have secure. So some hospitals and those kinds of things have security around also, and those types of things. We've got Abe, right? So he's gonna hurt somebody. Staff name tags, but even on our staff name tags, administration, we have our first and last name, but our individuals that are with patients all the time only have the first name, so that they can't find. I don't know if they would know how to spell your last name or pronounce it anyway, so it'd be good. But those types of things. Escort buddy systems to parking areas, so even if you don't have security system, walk out together just to make sure everybody gets home safe. And then calling security or police. My previous employer, I actually worked at the Oscar Winsky Company, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with what they do, but at the Oscar Winsky Company, we take scrap metal. And so if you know anything about scrap metal, when prices are high, lots more individuals taking copper from all kinds of things and trying to bring it in to sell and those types of things. So, and we have kind of almost the same population of just, a lot of times they're not necessarily mentally stable individuals. So calling the police officers are always like, call us if you need us, So there was a couple situations where in a human resources function, I had to call the police to say, okay, this person's on our property, it's a little strange, can you come help me? Or I would call and say, I'm getting ready to terminate somebody, can you come? But also we had the police officers there a lot for just trying to find out what was going on with some material that went missing. So, so that was a whole different realm, but that's definitely something that was true. We talked about some of those things, but to deal with potential problems, some things that you can do are you need to remain calm. So an individual is getting upset because they do want medications, those types of things, is for you to remain calm so that you can deal with them appropriately. Also calling a supervisor in, that type of thing. I'm in a different facility than Jackie and Charlotte, but there's times when just me walking out and looking like I have some type of authority makes that person, calm down, or those types of things. Or walking out with my phone, that type of thing makes it look like I'm going to do something. So, but for you to stay calm, help them regain control, acknowledge that the other patient is having problems. So sometimes even just acknowledging that, I know that you're upset, I can see that you're having issues, what can I do to help you? Even if you can't, maybe just even offering or listening to them and making sure that they feel like they're being heard. So those types of things are things that you can do. Does anybody have any questions about kind of workplace violence and the types of things that might come from that? Let's talk about ergonomics. And actually ergonomics for you guys definitely can be a situation, as I said, probably in more residential, or I'm sorry, in extended healthcare facilities, nursing homes, and those types of things. Just the musculoskeletal issues that are there. But actually in your guys' settings, a lot of what you're doing on a day's time is doing what?
Carrying your laptop.
Yeah, carrying your laptop, sitting. I see these two sitting all the time when I go up to that floor. They're always sitting. So sitting.
She's also blind, guys.
That's right. Yeah. So, but sitting and walking, all those kinds of things, definitely are things that we need to look for. So does anybody know what the definition of ergonomics is?
I do not.
You do not, okay. The definition of ergonomics is the study of how a workplace and the equipment used there can best be designed for comfort, safety, efficiency, and productivity. According to OSHA, the definition is the science of fitting the jobs to the people who work in them. The primary need is to ensure proper fit, okay? So that's what ergonomics stands for. So things like proper posture, appropriate seating position, safe lifting techniques, adaptive equipment, those are things that, once again, we have our insurance carrier will come around and look at workplace settings to see that you're sitting appropriately and those types of things. And I've got a handout that we'll talk about that shows types of those things. But some causes of ergonomic problems and means of prevention are some other things that you guys don't really necessarily do, and maybe I'm wrong in that aspect, but repetitive motions. So I'm thinking more of it, once again, in a manufacturing facility where somebody's working at a piece of machine and they're doing this all day. And so how can you make that so it's level instead of them bending and stooping, doing repetitive motions, those types of things. Excessive force could also be, you guys probably don't have a lot of those situations in your place, but awkward positions you definitely have. I know my posture is 100% awful, so I always try to be cognizant of how I'm sitting at my desk or those types of things. And also prolonged contact with sharp or cold surfaces. And you guys don't have necessarily that situation either, but those are some things. But common healthcare ergonomic hazards are back injuries. And once again, you guys could or could not have that, but that's a common thing. But what you need to be doing is using good body mechanics. So lift with your legs, not your back. How many times have you been told that? So even if you're picking up a box of, I see boxes coming up and being put, supplies putting away and that type of thing. And a lot of things that you're dealing with probably aren't heavy material, but just be paying attention to how you're actually lifting that material. It's more, sometimes it's even the box is just more awkward than it is heavy. So just keep those kinds of things in mind. But rearrangement of workspace and supplies, use of good body mechanics, good posture, job enhancement, ergonomic exercises. So some manufacturing facilities, and it doesn't hurt for other individuals to get used to that too, is to really do kind of warm-up exercises. I know a big company that does that is Isuzu. They do exercises every day so that they can help with some of those getting loosened up and those types of things. Personal protective equipment such as back braces or wrist rests. Work selection and placement based on health conditions and job demands, specific training, so those types of things that we could probably be better at, actually having people just keep it in the forefront. Do not twist and turn while lifting. Keep the weight close to your body, so don't be reaching out, keeping it close to your body as you're lifting things. And so we talked about bending at the knees. Another thing that can come from if you don't have good ergonomic settings is actually carpal tunnel syndrome. So I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, but that can be a common thing, especially if you're somebody that's keying all the time or typing all the time. But actually it can also be, other individuals that have those types of things are actually guitar players, because they're constantly have they're using their wrists in an awkward, or drummers, those types of things. You're gripping heavy things. So those kinds of things can come up as well. So just keep in mind maybe to do some stretches, as you go through the day to make sure that you keep yourself loosened up. And then neck and back and shoulder pain. Some of that can come from, telephones. So we're on the phone and we're doing this instead of, paying attention to how we're actually using our bodies. So I brought a handout of some computer ergonomic types of things. And so let's look at this and see what adjustments you might be able to make in your workplace for that. Here, let's do this. I don't know if, and I did not put this as as part of the presentation, so that may not be good for if you're gonna. There's some extra. Yeah, so computer ergonomics. So if you're looking, and this comes, I did not make this up, obviously. This comes from Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But so let's look at this. So ergonomics involves arranging, adapting, and adjusting your work environment to promote comfort and efficiency. Practicing good posture is also very important. Are you comfortable at your workstation? Review the items below to see if you can add to your comfort and efficiency. So for example, a screen. The top of your screen should be at or just below eye level, approximately 16 to 22 inches away. So think of that as you're sitting at your facility. I know these guys work on laptops a lot also, so maybe it's a situation we need to get something to put underneath the laptop as you're at your desk. I know it doesn't maybe apply, you could figure out something else whenever you go into a room, but have something that lifts your laptop up as you're sitting there as well. I know whenever I got to work at Riggs, I was like, I really need my computer up, and so I was like, do we have any like risers anywhere? But so I took these really stupid thick books and put them there to lift them up. So it doesn't look very good, but I'm not doing, because I noticed I was like, my neck was starting to hurt, so I made my computer screen up. So even make your own engineering control, right? If you need to take a box that you empty to put it. So it looks kind of goofy, but it works at the moment. So chair, learn the adjustments on your chair. Keep back support, feet flat on the floor. It's really hard sometimes to concentrate on keeping your feet flat on the floor while you're typing, but that helps your whole posture to do that. Knees should be at approximately 90 degrees when seated, and legs should be able to move freely under your desk. So keep those things in mind. Keyboard. We had, at my old facility, we had an individual that did, like I said, we have at our facility for insurance, but she came around and was talking about our keyboards. And the first thing she did is she came over and flipped all of our, I don't know what you call those things on the back to make it flat. The legs on the back of your keyboard, she says they should be flat instead of having them up, because you're like this. If it's up, you need to be more like this, that carpal tunnel thing, if your wrist is in the proper position. Your keyboard at height, so wrists are straight and elbows approximately 90 degrees. A wrist rest may provide additional support, but actually she doesn't recommend those either. So there's all these fancy things you can buy to put on your wrist, but she said actually those are more hindrance because you rest it on there and then you're cutting off your circulation here. So those actually are not as good as just having it plain. And actually, she even recommended not even having a mouse pad, so just having your mouse free. So those are some things. So there's probably different opinions on that, I'm sure, but those are some things. And maintain a light touch on your keyboard so you're not really pounding on it. Document holder. So for those of you that may be typing up documents or doing those types of things, so getting a document holder, so it's up. So if I'm facing my computer, it's up here instead of this, which I do a lot. You have it down here in front of your keyboard and you're typing, those types of things. Change position, so frequently change position. So I laugh that these two are sitting all the time. I know they're up and about, but it's not good to be actually sitting all day long at your computer. Eye comfort. So this can become a problem as well. So you want to reduce glare by controlling light from uncovered windows. Set computer at a right angle to the window. Adjust inside lighting or reposition of computer to eliminate glare. A computer screen glare, one of those things that you put over to keep the glare down, those types of things. And organize in your work area. So keep most frequently used items as telephone and calculator within easy reach. Any papers that you need to grab, get a kind of one of those file folder or one of those file holders so that you can grab them easily. And then we talked about exercise. So warm up before work by doing simple exercises. Micro breaks throughout the day just to get up and move around, stretch a little bit. And communication and training, so just communicating with your coworkers maybe and trying to come up with some ideas. You might take this back to your coworkers and say, this is what I learned, maybe we can implement this so that if somebody's complaining about back problems and those types of things. So does anybody have any questions on ergonomics that I can help answer for you? Does that make sense? Okay. So then let's talk about conflict in the workplace, or communications that might come up in the workplace, but actually, where's communication also a problem? Relationships, marriages, kids, all those kinds of things. But conflict is defined as a perceived divergence of interest. So basically, somebody has a different opinion than you do is when conflict might arise. So some things that we might have, as I said, that might let me back up a second and say, so as I said, the types of conflict that you might have in groups or things that you might have is conflict at work, conflict at home, conflict at games. So if you have children or you have parents, who's the biggest problem when it comes to sporting events? Parents. It's not the kids, it's the parents. So things there. And conflict with communication in general. So those are some things that types of conflicts that there might be. So causes of conflict. So as I said, we're going to have conflict in different types of things. So in personal communication, where conflicts may arise, is we just have behavioral differences. We're all different individuals, no doubt, and we have different opinions. And so we have differences among members of any group that we have. Another reason that you might have personal conflict is lack of trust. So lack of trust between individuals causes that as well. When it comes to structural conflict and causes of that, you may have mismatches of capabilities, interests, and motivation. No shared goals. So you're not working towards the same goals causes conflict. Lack of sufficient structure. So if things are kind of chaotic, we sometimes can become introverts and not try to communicate, just try to do what we need to do to survive, basically. Lack of necessary member skills and abilities, so those can be issues. And over or under functioning management and or leadership, so those kinds of things can come up as well. You guys wouldn't tell me if there was problems with the leadership, right? Right. Okay. And external things that there might be is relationships and past experiences. So we all have our own past experiences and our own baggage that we bring with us to work into relationships, and that can cause conflicts as well as we go through life. The other things that I touched on that a little bit was our perceptions are our reality, so what I'm experiencing and what I view the world to be. Have you guys ever done any of those perception tests? And it's like, they show you a picture and it's like, what's your perception of what this is? And everybody's perception of what is going on is way different than anybody else's. So that's definitely something that we bring as well as our own values and assumptions from our past experiences and history. So all those kinds of things can cause conflict. We already talked about that. So conflict is normal, as you might imagine, as we go along. So conflict is inevitable, and it's a very normal behavior. But some conflict is actually good. It just needs to be managed, and it can strengthen a working relationship. So catching conflict early is the key. So as you continue to work with individuals and or you deal with certain groups, really just catching it early is key. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I first was married many years ago, I would, what's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. And now it's like I just let it out because I might as well get it over with, because then we can just move on from there. So catching it early is the key. So some conflicts can be functional or dysfunctional. But levels of stress and conflict have a correlation, obviously. The higher our stress gets, the higher conflict oftentimes gets. So we need to try to control our stress to hopefully control some of that conflict that we might be experiencing. So when it comes to dysfunctional conflict, conflict can break down working relationships for sure, if it's a dysfunctional conflict. It diverts energy and can cause stress, so it can cause you stress and you're stressed out already, and so then it just becomes a cesspool of disaster possibly waiting to happen. And also dysfunctional conflict destroys morale and trust. So the more stressed out you get and the more those types of things, you start really thinking about all the trust issues that you might have. But once again, your perception is somewhat your reality. Back to that again. So if I trust Charlotte that she's doing what she's supposed to be doing, I don't have as much stress and conflict. But if Charlotte is not doing what I think she's supposed to be doing, then it increases my stress and then can cause conflict and those types of things. So it's all a big circle. Then functional conflict could be, functional conflict can improve decision making. It can stimulate creativity and problem solving. So there are situations where actually functional conflict can really be helpful. Releases tension and improves working relationships. So you can, if you're having a conflict, actually sit down with the person and just say, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. How can we work through this? And sometimes you have to agree to disagree. So I don't really agree with you, but I can move on from that, and hopefully we're mature enough to move on with those situations. So the types of conflicts that we may run into.
She has a conflict.
Conflict, yes. She's hungry. It's probably the conflict, right? Okay. So when it comes to conflict, one of the biggest things is obviously communication. And so how we can work through communication abilities to relieve that conflict. And it's a lifelong effort. I don't know about you guys, but trying to communicate. We've been talking about at work that we really need to increase our communication between our members. But it's what's appropriate, to communicate and all those kinds of things. So you may feel like you're not getting the full communication at times, but there may also be reasons behind that, or people just don't realize that they haven't communicated that as well. So channels of communication. Let's talk a little bit about channels of communication. And some of these, and I really didn't hit on that, but are nonverbal things that are verbal and nonverbal things that we might do. So verbal communication, obviously oral and written. So oral would be speaking and listening. Sometimes we only hear what we want to hear, so we have to increase our listening skills. And sometimes just parroting it back. So this is what you said, is that what you meant to say? Those types of things. Sometimes I say things that I really don't mean how they come out. My tone may be wrong. I also have facial expressions that I do that I really don't mean for them to be what they were, but people take them wrong if they don't know me very well. So nonverbal communication can be body, so your appearance and your voice, your touch and your space, those types of things can be types of nonverbal as well. So I talked a little bit about facial expressions and eye contact. There's all kinds of courses that you can take on communication, verbal and nonverbal cues, and all those kinds of things for sure. Other body movements and gestures. So you may do something that somebody perceives as something different than what you meant for it to be. We probably have this issue at times for the type of population that we serve also, but clothing and personal appearance. So we look at somebody who looks straggly and we might think, she points to you. But we might think, we might automatically have a perception that there's something different than they are, that type of thing. Distance and personal space, your physical environment, all those kinds of things can be nonverbal communication. The other thing that's a common thing among work groups and or any other type of organization that you might be in is age ranges. So somebody that is of a different generation compared to other individuals have different morals and values at times, and so that can be a hard thing as well. Once again, the type of individuals that we serve as well. I know these ladies doing the prenatal side of things, definitely a different age range sometimes than what other organizations might have. Racial background, so that can really get work group differences there. Religious beliefs, ethnic backgrounds we talked about. Educational levels definitely can be different things. Economic levels for sure. Lifestyles, sexual orientation can be another one, as well as geographical background. So all those things can have different, can make different conflicts come into our workplace as well. So influences communication. Senders and receivers are influenced by knowledge, perceptions, experience, skills, culture. So we talked about all those things as well. So other things that can be communication challenging are the sender of the message could be ambiguous. Our tone of voice may not reflect true feelings. Gestures may convey the importance, may not convey the importance of the message. Our environment. So there could be too much noise or distractions around us as well. Listener's mind is wandering, so you probably are doing that now because you're probably tired of listening to me talk. Receiving words or body language is misinterpreted. My perception is my reality once again. And once again, just feedback. So once again, maybe asking, is this what you meant to say? This is what I heard. Those types of things. Those are all great things to do so that you can make sure that you understand what the other person is saying, for sure. The other thing is sometimes the words that we say can kind of put people on edge to begin with. I know when I worked many years ago as a customer service representative, we tried to stay a word from the word I need. I need for you. That's a very demanding word if you think about it. So some other things that we can stay away from are you lack, you never, you always and never we should never try to use because they can be, that automatically gets a negative connotation. I don't think you guys would ever say you are stupid, you are dumb. Those kinds of things. But we can, we need to think about the words that we choose sometimes also. So it doesn't hurt for you to take a deep breath before you say something back to make sure that you don't come across wrong. Also, some listening techniques that we can use that people possibly could be used, or they ignore you. If you have teenagers, we have that, right? Ignore me. They pretend to be listening, selective listening, and active listening. So those are all the things that you might try to keep in mind. So conflict styles. Whenever it comes to conflict styles, there's different conflict styles that we can talk about. So compromising is actually one conflict style. And so we try to make that I'm kind of a big compromiser in my home life for sure, of trying to make it a 50-50 win, right? So it's like we can compromise to make this a better situation. So negotiating or bargaining and just try to search for a solution which is mutually agreeable to both parties. Accommodating. So accommodating, there could be times whenever you need to use that, is you're willing to give up myself to keep our working relationship going, so we accommodate. I give up my own goals. I lose, you win strategy is what that one's really about. So those types of things. Avoiding, and this is a lot of ones that you probably know people who try the avoiding tactics. So I just don't deal with it. I just go into my introvert mode. I really don't. That becomes across as I don't really care about what other people think. It's my way, or I just clam up. Procrastinate. So they think it'll go away by itself. How many situations have you had of a conflict that it's like, oh, it'll just go away? Not very often. And so those are maybe not the best strategy that you could use when it comes to conflict. That's kind of all I have as far as the communication styles and those types of things go.
I had a question about conflicts.
Uh-huh.
I have a coworker that I work closely with,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was how she was raised, but she is a very defensive person,
Uh-huh.
and it's almost like a self-protecting
Uh-huh.
defensive person.
Yes.
So anything that she feels, even if it's doesn't really put her in a bad light, but anything she feels like puts her in a bad light, she automatically deflects.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So how would you deal with that type of person because I work closely with her. It's
Yeah.
not like I
Yes.
see her once in a blue moon and.
Yes, right. Uh-huh. Those are really hard ones to deal with as well. And probably the best thing to do is just, and I hate to say it, but either keep at it, just keep at it. And maybe by some of the things that we talked about, or doing a little more research on your own also, how to deal with those individuals. One book that I love is, it's called Since Strangling Isn't an Option. So how to work with individuals. And so it talks about the different individuals that are in your workplace. So there are the apes, there's the snakes, there's those type of individuals. So using resources like that also to figure out how to deal with a person like that. But unfortunately, from an HR role, it sounds like that person may be a person that you can't kind of keep in a working relationship very well, probably. They're going to probably always have struggles. Is she also young, or is she?
No, she's older.
She's older,
Yeah,
okay.
She's been a nurse for 30 years.
Okay, so she probably has a lot of experiences, you're right, from her background, and all of this kind of is just is probably a build-up. So it's, I'm not saying she's wrong, I'm not saying how she deals with things is wrong, but she probably could use a little work also. So how do you kind of get to that point of talking with her and saying, okay, I think we're having struggles here, how can we get over that
The
struggle?
problem is that would
Yeah, cause conflict,
Yeah.
right? It's gonna cause conflict, so.
Because you're putting her in a bad light.
Yes,
So it's like,
right. Yes, so those are very difficult ones to deal with. So I don't really have probably a lot of good advice other than just try to keep trudging along with her and try to just. Sometimes the other thing is I have found in my personal life also, personal work experiences is I've got somebody I have a conflict with. I have to change how I deal with them, The other thing is, if you work closely with her, trying to have her open up so that you can realize what types of things cause her to act that way. So just kind of continuing to get to know her, and maybe you can get to the root cause of what that is. And sometimes it could be as silly as, if it's you that she thinks is you click your pen and it drives me crazy. It's like, it could be something very generic, and hopefully that's what it is, but it could also be something very deep, so it kind of depends on what the situation is. So yes. Any other questions about any of that? Okay, so the Family Medical Leave Act, and I didn't put a bunch of slides together because I wasn't sure how much time I was going to have, so I thought maybe we could just make it a free kind of conversation. But let me tell you where the kind of the root of where I believe that the Family Medical Leave Act came about. It was implemented back in the early 90s, and my perception is that it was implemented because individuals would go out on a pregnancy from work. An employer would just say, sorry about your luck, you don't have a job when you come back, or I need to have a knee replacement, and an employer would say, sorry about your luck, don't come back after that type of thing. So I believe that's where Family Medical Leave Act came about. So the things that qualify you, or qualify a coworker of yours for FMLA, is actually you have to work for an employer for 12 months and had to have worked 1,250 hours, which you would if you worked full-time. And also facilities that are scattered about, that facility has to be within a 75-mile radius. And only employers that have 50 or more employees have to abide by the Family Medical Leave Act rules, okay? So the reasons why somebody might go on FMLA, there are 6 reasons, and I'm hoping I can remember what they all are. But the biggest one is your own serious disability or own serious health condition. So you need to go out for a surgery or that type of thing. To adopt a child or to care for a newborn child, any of those types of things. As well as to care for a parent that needs attention. Trying to think of the other one is, but the other 2 have to deal with military individuals. So the 2 that President Obama implemented a couple years ago have to do with military, so to care for a wounded military personnel individual, and the other one is actually for qualifying exigency. So whenever the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was really hot and heavy, they implemented that so that if I have a son that's going to be going over to Afghanistan, I, as a parent, actually have the ability to take time off to actually get ready for them to depart, so to set up anything I need, if I need to help with banking or children or even just to spend time with that individual. That's the other reason why you could possibly take FMLA for those situations. So FMLA is actually an unpaid leave. And you have the right to actually take 12 weeks of unpaid leave is what the standard is. So it can be an unpaid leave. Companies may have in place short-term disability or sick leave, those types of things that maybe, or vacation time that you could take. But that's an unpaid leave for 12 weeks typically. So those are the kind of the regulations. The other thing is that once you, and actually FMLA can be either weeks at a time, somebody's going out for a surgery, or they can also be intermittent. So I have, and this is what makes HR people crazy, is the intermittent leave, because I have migraines, and so I have to call in once a week, you know, those types of things. So it can be really frustrating to try to deal with those. And people do have illnesses, no doubt about it, but people that don't have those situations, it becomes hard for the work group to try to, because it can be is Charlotte coming in today or not, you know, kind of thing. So that can be hard. So if you have a situation that's going to be an FMLA leave, what you would need to get from your human resources individual would be, if you can notify them as much in advance as possible, that's great. Obviously, there's situations that come up that aren't known. So, for example, I get in a car accident, or I've had a heart attack right now, type of thing. So I've had the pleasure of going actually to see people in the hospital, right? So it's always an awkward situation. So you would actually get some papers, and so the papers that you would receive are one of the papers. These are all government regulated papers that we have that are your rights and responsibilities. So it lays out really what FMLA is and what your rights and responsibilities are, those types of things. The next thing that you would actually get is a certification from your healthcare provider. So you actually have to take papers to your healthcare provider for them to say why you're on leave and what the extent of your leave is going to be. As I always say, so I know that you're not vacationing in Hawaii for the month of January, right? I need certification from the doctor to say that you're not. And then also, whenever you get coming back to work, you need to provide documentation to your human resources individual to also say that it's okay for you to come back with or without restrictions. The other thing that's going to help you through FMLA situations is if you do keep in contact with your human resources person as you have appointments. You know, you don't need to call them every day, but you can call and say, okay, my surgery is now a week later, I have an appointment. So just calling them that week later and saying, I went to the doctor, this is what they said, this is how much longer they think it's going to be, you know, that type of thing. Communication is really key in that. Something that individuals don't realize when it comes to Family Medical Leave Act is that FMLA and workers' comp can go side by side. So if I have a work comp injury at the workplace, and it's actually, so it's a serious health condition that I have, it can run side by side with FMLA, so there may be some different papers that you're dealing with there. The other thing is that, so FMLA was implemented. It's really an employee-based benefit for sure. But what it does allow is, so now I've got somebody that's out on FMLA, and I've got this vacancy in my workplace, and I have to keep that vacancy open for 12 weeks. So I can't fill that position for 12 weeks. At the end of that 12th week, if you're not able to come back to work, the employer does have the right to actually terminate your employment at that point. So just be aware of that also, that there is an end period for it, you know, so that they have the right to terminate your employment at that 12 weeks if you're not able to come back. So those are situations that could come up as well. So, or if I am supposed to return on Monday and I don't come back, you know, the employer has the right to terminate your employment as well. So, what other specific questions might you have when it comes to FMLA?
What about when you don't qualify for FMLA?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't qualify for FMLA, the employer really has the opportunity not to have to hold your position open for those 12 weeks. A lot of companies are not necessarily going to do that because you're probably a trained individual. But FMLA rules do not apply really when it comes to that. So you really don't have a lot of protection per se for that situation, but it depends on the employer. You know, if you're there for a month and you go out on FMLA, you can see how an employer would say, you know, the other thing is that person could reapply when they're done with their situation. to possibly be rehired and those types of things. So that is a piece of it. Mhm.
Is it just 1 year's worth?
It is a 12, and different companies do it differently. We do a rolling 12 months, okay? So you're right, so that's a good question. So I have a situation where I have a baby, and I'm out for my 6 weeks possibly. I come back to work, and then I'm in a car accident. And so the employer, within that year, the employer only has to hold your job open on that second situation for 6 weeks. And then they really do have the right to terminate your employment. Whether they do or not, they have the right to terminate your employment. So, yeah. Uh-huh.
I ran into a situation where someone was off on FMLA, and when they came back, the employer said, "We filled your position, but we still have this position that you can take." So they were taking it as, we guarantee you'll have a job, but not necessarily
Yeah.
the same one.
Yes, and that can happen too. It depends on, there's laws and regulations around that, and I don't know 100%, because if I had a situation like that, I would go to the Department of Labor website and I would try to figure out what it is. You have to bring somebody back at similar position, similar pay, and similar benefits. And so that's kind of what the regulation outlines. So you have to kind of work through that. And as I said, I would go to the Department of Labor website and really, look at that if I had that situation. So yes, you can do that. You can put them in a different situation. But it has to kind of be similar pay, similar position, similar benefits. Yep.
I know I'm due on Valentine's Day, and I've talked to, because I'm a planner, so I like things set in stone. And I tried to talk to our HR personnel after 12 weeks of being pregnant, because I felt fairly confident that this one was going to last. And so she's like, talk to me a month before. She's like,
Yep.
and which freaked me out, because I know for myself, like, I want the details. I want to know what's going to happen ahead of time. A month before is not enough time for me to figure it out. So I ended up, they had an open enrollment, and I went and talked to them instead of waiting till January to talk to them. And she still didn't give me a lot of info, but she explained it a little bit, and she's like, I can't even fill out the paperwork till a month before. So there's no point in us even starting paperwork until then. But the scary thing for me was like, well, what happens if my baby comes early? And so I had to talk to her about that, and she's like, well, then you would call me from the hospital, and we would start it then.
Yeah.
But I know the whole 30 days before thing was like, kind of freaked me out a little bit, so I have a note, like, call HR. It was like,
Us HR people we deal with it so much that we probably aren't as about it, kind of thing. I mean, for sure. I have somebody in a similar situation, and she's not due till, I think it's about the same time. And I was like, I'll catch up with you, don't worry about it, I'll catch up with you. So I'm probably freaking her out. But,
it depends on the personality of that person, too.
yes.
But I like to have everything, my ducks in a row, I want
Yes.
to know what's going on.
And is this your first baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, your world's about to change. Right, girls?
So,
Yeah, so that's probably true. As HR individuals know enough about it that we probably do fly by the seat of our pants a little more than other individuals, and so we probably do make people crazy, I'm sure. But yeah, we can do what we need to do once it happens too. So it's not like we
that's
need
what
it,
she said, there's a 30-day retro back or whatever.
Yeah. So she'll get it taken care of, I'm sure. But she probably is making you crazy.
Yeah,
So
just a
yeah, just little, yes. So. And there's oddball situations that come up. I've been doing human resources for many years, and there's oddball situations that will come up that I still have to research. I had an individual who had, actually she had 2 granddaughters that were teenagers that actually she had custody of, and both of them were pregnant at the same time. Whew, I was like, that's goodness sakes. But anyway, and so she has, because she was able to prove that she was their guardian, FMLA applied to the girls but it didn't apply when they had the babies. So she didn't have any rights for, taking care of the babies per se, taking time off for the babies, unless she got guardianship of them, So it's all these kind of weird situations that can come up, for sure. That even human resources, people who have done it for a long time still have to research, to figure out what to do in those situations, so. Yep.
I know my coworker, her father-in-law is really sick, and she's actually power of attorney for her father-in-law.
Okay.
But she can't take FMLA for her father-in-law because it's not her parent.
It specifically says in the regulation, not in-law,
Yeah.
But an employer, so there can be situations like that an employer could work with that individual possibly. Hopefully they have some time off that they can take on a vacation side of things and that type of thing. Or if they can't prove power of attorney, that could be a situation that could be different, that's whenever you call the attorney. So I can research all I want, but you have these oddball situations that come up and I have to, call an attorney and say, what do I do in this situation? So to get some guidance, so that happens too.
So what are some situations in your job that you've run into that are kind of weird or crazy?
I haven't really had a lot. I've only been at Riggs actually a couple of months, so I haven't really had a lot. Although we have a lot of people that need surgeries, have had surgeries, are coming back from surgeries, all kinds of those, those types of things. But probably the oddest one I've had is the FMLA, or is the individual that had the granddaughters that were both pregnant at the same time, and so that was an interesting one. Another one is, I did have work comp in my old job. We had obviously work comp injuries at times, and so had individuals that we had to go through that process. Actually had somebody that had a really serious injury, and they did not qualify for FMLA because they had only been there 4 or 5 months. So trying to, float through that and try to figure that out. They were also covered under work comp still, but didn't really fall under FMLA. So those are always kind of oddball ones that you deal with. But for the most part, it's pretty much a similar situation in a lot of situations. Somebody's going out for a knee surgery. Somebody's having a baby. Those are the common things that come up. But there's oddball ones that come up occasionally. So.
So what is your favorite part for you about your job?
About my job?
Putting up with me.
Yeah, put up with Charlotte and Jackie. They're my challenges.
She comes up with me,
Yeah.
stress, she knows.
Yeah. I always say with human resources, it's like, why am I doing this? I don't really know how I got into this occupation, but here I am. I really like a lot of the things I do because I do, hiring. Unfortunately, I have to do terminations. As I say, though, people usually don't terminate them. They terminate themselves. I don't terminate them. It's usually, they terminate themselves. I really like the challenges of when it comes to the bigger problems, an FMLA situation like that, where I'm like have to figure out, how this works and those types of things. Obviously, I like interacting with people. I like. In my job now, I get to do a lot. I get to make a difference in my job now. So I'm part of the senior leadership team. So I actually get to implement things and talk about how to, some things you guys probably weren't happy about that we've implemented, but implement some things. But I have a say in what I'm doing in this position for sure. So that's fun. People are interesting. I always say human resources would be a lot easier if it wasn't for the people. Trust me. There's some days it's like, oh my gosh.
Human is part of the name.
That's right. Yeah. So I really like all the facets of it. I like negotiating benefits and talking about benefits and helping people work through those benefits. I like a lot of the facets of it. It's very different. You never know what you're going to walk into in a day's time for sure. Always something going on. But communication is definitely part of it. Trying to make sure you're telling appropriate people the right message and all those things. So yeah, it's a wide position for sure, and interesting most days.
Yeah, and Amy kind of, and I don't know how Jackie feels, but I think when it came to redoing our benefits and stuff, they really watching out and making the changes, I think a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that makes a difference when they come up, and they tell you what's going on. So I kind of like that part of it.
Yeah, to be open about communication
Yeah,
and those
and-
types of things.
You know, and it was paperwork that I didn't get filled out in, because Zaya called me and asked me about it. So,
Yeah.
And that helped, because I didn't have the time to take off and go to the meeting.
Yes.
Because of the schedules we got.
Yes,
So.
yes.
And that's a big help when they do that, that you don't have to take
Yes.
time off from what you're doing.
Yes, yeah, and that's part of, and that's what I hope that your human resources individuals do that too. I try to do pretty well about getting around individuals, and I always make sure I have a pad and paper or my phone ready so that I can write down, I have a question about that, because you guys are busy and aren't able to get away from your positions to come see us. I'm in a different building than these two, so that makes it even harder.
But you still make the time to come up there and sit, and that makes a difference when they make the time to come up.
Yeah, to
And
say,
even our CEO does that. She comes up and checks on us, and I'm thinking, man, that's neat.
yeah.
I've never had one do that before.
Yeah, so to try to get up to see what people are, what they have going on, what challenges they might be having that day, to hear interesting stories. This is the floor that I go to for crazy stories. But really, and the other thing is, I say, there's, I don't know, like big organizations like IU Health possibly, if that's who you might work for, you can do a lot of your benefits enrollments and address changes and all that stuff online. You can do all that and never have to see me, which is fine. But I like to have a touch. I like to have, a conversation with somebody. I like for them to feel comfortable able to come to me, because then whenever they do have a situation that we really need to talk about, hopefully or if I do have to do disciplinary actions or termination, they see that. Just point at you. You're next on the docket. They see that.
Don't put me in
That's
this.
right. They can see that how I've handled the other situations. I'm just trying to be fair and do my job, and hopefully they have respect and dignity for those types of things too, just as I try to have respect and dignity for them, even if I'm trying to let somebody to go. I have to let
She goes
somebody
to
go.
Encore because we're always happy.
Yes, you guys do a good job of being happy. Yes.
Yeah, we do.
I go to the other floor for screaming babies. They're screaming. So, yeah. So what other questions do you have about FMLA or anything else we covered today, or any other things that you want to know about the crazy world of human resources?
What, did you start out knowing that you wanted to go into human resources, or is that something that just kind of happened?
It's something that somewhat happened. I graduated from high school, went to Benton Central, for anybody that's around here, so I went to Benton Central, and I got accepted to Purdue. And it's one of those, you're 18, you go to Purdue, and you're like, what am I going to do? And so I started off in retail management at Purdue. And really, if you think back, and I'm going to age myself a little bit, this is back in the early 90s when like Walmart was expanding. We didn't have one yet in West Lafayette, but it was expanding, So retail management really started to become more about those big superstores and that type of thing. Well, I'm sitting in classes with all of these sorority girls who were talking about how they went shopping at Neiman Marcus this weekend up in Chicago, and I was like, this is not my crowd. So I went to a general studies class to determine what I wanted to do. And so my degree is actually in organizational leadership and supervision. And actually it's a very broad degree, and I liked it because it can vary. It's not just an engineering degree or a pharmacy degree or something like that. So it's a lot about, there's a lot of classes about supervision, a lot of classes about leadership, a lot of classes about actually like unions and kind of how they came about and how to negotiate with unions, that type of thing. Manufacturing, of course, but also any other business. And I always kind of really liked the human resources classes. I mean, I just kind of always was drawn to those. So when I got out of school, I knew that I was going to stay in the area because I got married. So started off in the banking business as a customer service representative and became a trainer. So I was a trainer at PNC Bank for 4 years. And so I liked that aspect of it. I learned a lot about training and that type of thing. I made a jump to, this is like what my don't do this job. I went to Transcom, which is a telemarketing firm, as a supervisor. Stayed there for a short time. Went to PMI, which is Personnel Management Incorporated, so it's a staffing agency. Because I always thought I wanted to do that, so I did that for about 1.5 years and decided that wasn't for me either, but I'm glad I did it because I would have always wondered. And then became the personnel director at the Mike Madrid Company for 4 years. So really got my feet wet in human resources, and that was an interesting position for sure. And then went to Cook Biotech for a very short time as the human resources generalist. And then I was actually at the Oscar Winsky Company, Lafayette Steel and Aluminum, for 10 and a half years. So this position came open as vice president, and like I said, I like this position because I really have a say in making changes and making policies and procedures of what we're doing, and feel like I can really make a difference. So I like it because of that. So that's kind of my history. I know it's a little long answer to your story, but just kind of always fell into the human resources realm. And of course, we as an employee or as in our career think sometimes, why am I doing what I'm doing? But I don't know what else I would do. So here I am. So until I win the lottery or and share. That's right. Nope. Okay. Well, I appreciate your guys' time and attention. So I hope you learned something today. So I was happy to come and help. So. Great, thank you. All right. Thank you.
Let's first start by taking a look at the old website. You can use any internet browser that you would like. I just happen to be using Firefox. As you can see, the old website link is hard to remember. We have fixed that with the new website. On the side, over here, you see the menu system. While it worked well, there was a lot of redundancy in it and could be sometimes difficult to work through. Let's now take a look at the new website. So we're going to go up to the URL bar and delete that. Here's the link for the new website. It's www.aama-wcind.org. See how much easier that is? It's closer to the national link, which is the AAMA-NTL.org. Here we are. As you can see, we have a new look. It's cleaner and more professional looking, with custom graphics. We're also using our own logo, which was designed and improved by the State AAMA Council. You can see we have our introduction video on the home page. On the right, you can see any recent announcements that we may have, as well as a listed calendar of our upcoming events. At the top, you can see our easy navigation menu. Let's take a look at your 2014-2015 board. Here is the link for the new board. You can see the names and pictures and positions of your current board members. Here you have your president, Amanda Wade, your vice president, Jackie Vukabranovich, your director, Jenny Begley, and your secretary, Kayla Seymour. Next, let's take a look at the announcements page. Here is your full announcements page. As you can see, we currently don't have any upcoming announcements, but you can see the current chapter meeting dates. These are also the dates that we have for our recording training sessions. I would really encourage you to come to the meetings if you can. If you have any questions for the presenters, they are more than happy to answer them at the live meeting. Now, let's take a look at the schedule link. Here, you can see a full calendar. It will always update to the current month and day that you are currently on. You have several options here. If you see an event on the calendar, you can click the event to receive more details on the event. Let's look at the Christmas party event on December 6th. Here, you can see a lot more information. You can see the details of the event, of exactly when it is and where it is at. You can also click on the map link below the address and it will take you to Google Maps. From there, you can get directions as if you had entered the address in manually. So let's look at the map link, and you can see it'll open it in a new tab. And then from here, you can always get directions from wherever you're at. Below, you can see you have several more options. There's a copy to my calendar link. If you're using Microsoft Outlook or any type of online calendar application, this will automatically add it to your online calendar. For example, I use Google Calendar. If I were to click this, it would take me to my Google Calendar, and I can add this event to it so that I may be reminded of the event whenever it comes up. There's also a more details link. If you click this, it will take you to the actual calendar event online in the web browser, and you can see if there are any more details. Next, you can see in the top right that the default view is by the month. You can change this by clicking on the week or the agenda. Each of these views have their advantages. You can also click print for each of these views by clicking print after you click on the view you would like. So an example, here we're in agenda. We can click print and it will bring up a print view. And then we can print this as we want. If we go over to week, we can click print and do the same thing. Finally in month, click print and you get your month view. Finally, you can change the month you would like to see. Let's go back to our month view. So we're here. Next to the month listed, you can see that there are two arrows. If you click on the right arrow, you can see that you can navigate to January 2015. If you click on the left arrow, you move back to December. You can go as far forward or as far back as you would like. So we're going to go all the way to June. If you'd like to go back to your current date, you just have to click on the Today button. And now we're back here. Now, on to the meat of the website. Let's look at the courses link. If you just mouse over without clicking the courses link, you can see what courses there are currently available. If you click on the link, you can get to the main courses page and view a quick synopsis of each course available. There are currently no courses created for 2015. We will have those available as they become readily available. Keep watching the web page for the courses list. If you just mouse over the courses link again, you can see the courses and click on the direct link. Let's click on Course A. Here you can see the full course available. Once the course is posted, you will also be able to view the video for the course as well as take the end of course survey on the same page. Very convenient. Also, any resources that are necessary will be available via a download link on this page as well. Next, let's take a look at the registration page. Here is where you can register for our current course offerings. Please pay attention here. If you are a current paid AAMA member, you can register for the form on the left. Note where it says Members. You need your AAMA member ID for this registration. If you are unsure of your AAMA member ID, you can contact the AAMA member services and they can help you with this. For those that are not current AAMA members, you can still take the course offerings for them to count toward your CEU requirements of your CMA renewal. You can register here on the form on the right. You will need the last 4 digits of your social security number. Yes, I know. Just bear with me. The only person who has access to this information is the chapter president. Once you are done filling out the information in the proper form, you'll just click on the Submit button at the bottom of the form. Then, you are registered for the class. Each of these courses are free, so there is no need to worry about the cost unless the chapter president has informed you otherwise. Next, let's take a look at the current resources page. Here, you can see that we have several web resources available. There are the websites that we are affiliated with, our current video resources, and any past documents that we have provided. Let's look at the websites. Here, you can see that we directly link to the National AAMA website in the top link. If you click it, open a new window. There are lots of resources available here. Next, you'll see that we are also linked to the State of Indiana's double AMA page. Again, this site is also full of resources that are available for your use. Please feel free to use our site as a way to gain access to these other sites if you would like. Each of these links obviously will open a new page so that you don't lose access to our page if you still need it. Next, we are on to our previous video resources. As you can see, we are currently linking to 2 of our previous video resources: Improving Customer Communication and the 2012 update on CDC STD guidelines. If you click on the link for either one, it will open the YouTube page for viewing these resources.
Hi, I'm Amanda Wade, president of the West Central chapter of the AAMA.
And then we're going to go ahead and close this for now. As again, with the website links, this will open in a new page so that you can retain access to our web page if you need it. Finally, on this page, we see that we have access to the previous presentation documents. As we grow, our collection of documents will grow too. Please visit our site regularly as we will continue to grow our library of resources. In the current document listed, we have provided this presentation to you in the form of a PDF file so that you may easily view it on any device that you are using. Finally, if you'd like to contact us regarding any information about the AAMA or this website, there is a Contact Us page. Here, you can see this is a very basic contact page. You or anyone can fill out this page, and the email will go directly to the chapter board president. That's it.
Now that you've completed the viewing of our presentation, we have a quick survey for you to take to earn your CEU. Thank you for viewing our presentation and have a great day.